but whatever you learn there, forget about it, because that's not how uni works. 3 years of bachelor's, 2 years of master's, minimum 2,000 hours or minimum 2 years. There's a lot of struggle in this industry, especially in Australia. So it's very, very different. So you basically make a design which would be friendly to those two people, right?
Hi guys, hello, welcome back to another video. This is your KapsLock, and today we are back with Mr.
Jazz?
I was about to call you Jaspreet.
No, it's just Kamal actually.
Just Kamal, okay. So first of all, thank you for coming to the podcast style video, interview, whatever you call it.
Thank you for having me.
And today we actually want to talk on the topic which is basically not so present out there, and it's called architecture.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you have done your
Bachelor's
in architecture.
Yep. And diploma as well.
And diploma as well.
Yeah.
So I would love to ask some questions.
Yep.
Good questions.
Yep.
From you related to architecture industry in Australia.
Yep.
And let's see how it goes.
Sure.
So initially I would love to know more about your background and study journey. So initially, if I can know about what inspired you to choose architecture.
Yep. Oh, look, I guess for me, architecture was never actually my first preference to study in Australia.
Wow.
So that obviously, opens a lot of things. So previously, before starting architecture, I actually wanted to do animation. So because I love doing design and stuff, like sketching, which also obviously works well within the architecture because you do a lot of designing and stuff. But I guess what kind of drives me towards that was my background, in my family, my grandfather back in India, so he was a builder. So kind of have that in my genes, I would say. And I guess I kind of got inspired by him to do architecture because I heard a lot about the way he would design stuff, because he worked overseas, in Qatar and Dubai and Kuwait and all that. So yeah, for me, I guess I kind of got inspired by him, and then I said, let's just give it a shot. So I just that's how I started my architecture journey.
If I can ask, because when did you land in Australia?
2007.
And when did you started your bachelor's?
So bachelor's I started in 2015, but prior to that I did my diploma, which was in 2012.
Which place did you?
So that was at TAFE, Ultimo TAFE in Sydney. So I'm basically from Sydney, so I moved 9 months ago to Melbourne. So
how do you like it?
So far so good.
So far so good.
It's a good change. But yeah, so yeah, I started my journey from high school. From there I went to TAFE because like I mentioned before, architecture was never my first preference. And obviously to get into architecture, you need 96 ATAR. 96 ATAR, so which is the 96 percentage as an overall. So which is a really high mark if anyone wants to know that. So, but I guess if you haven't achieved that 96 ATAR, there are different pathways to get into it. So, which was diploma. So yeah, I guess we can get into depth of, how TAFE and uni differentiate between each other.
Yeah. So which university did you study at? You mentioned Monash?
No, so University of Sydney. So like I mentioned, I'm from Sydney.
And you studied in TAFE?
From in Sydney as well. So it's called Ultimo TAFE. It's in the city as well, in Sydney CBD. So yeah, so 2 years there, and then the bachelor is after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk on the main architecture course structure.
Yep.
And learning.
Yep.
What kind of subjects or skills do the course actually focus?
Yep. Look, I guess to be able to get into the course itself, you want to make sure you have a bit of a background in terms of the softwares that you'll be using. Because of course, going from school to a university or a TAFE, you don't use those tools beforehand, right? So I guess you do have that bit of time between the school and the uni, with that summertime, the summer break. Yeah. So you can get your hands on softwares like Revit, AutoCAD, Rhino, SketchUp. So I guess those are the skills that would be really, really necessary to have to be able to get into that course. And then also a bit of learn about the technical skills.
What kind of technical skills?
Look, I would say like there's two different sides of architecture, right? So there's a technical side, which is you're talking more like into details, like, you know, how, like, let's say a wall detail works, like, you know, how is this structure actually going to hold up and this and that. And obviously that's going to align with the engineering part of it as well.
Okay.
And then the other part is like, how do you play around within a space? So let's say
You have a certain
so let's say you have a certain room, let's say
this
yeah.
okay.
So how would you like play around with this space, and what can you design?
Can it not be called as interior designing?
No, that would be very different. So
How?
with architecture, so people like get confused. So
Yeah, please explain.
So for example, like in our first year of architecture, right? So there's different units
Yes.
that you focus on. So you got one core unit, which is your architecture studio,
Yes.
which goes towards your 2 semesters,
Yes.
architecture studio 1A, 1B. And then you also have history and theory, and then also art process, and then your elective on top of that. So basically like your studios are basically in the first year is focusing on spatial design, very conceptual design. It's kind of like getting a student to know how you work around in a space. So it's not like you don't have a type of a freedom that you have in TAFE, because like TAFE is very technical based in terms of like they focus more on practical skills, whereas uni they focus more on theoretical
stuff.
Yeah.
How practical versus theoretical
Yeah.
was the course?
Yeah, like I mentioned, yeah. So university is very, very theoretical based. So for me, like I came from a background of TAFE, so which will full on hands-on of how you actually work in an office, in an architecture office. So those full 2 years, you basically learn how to draft, how to work as a draftsman, how to work as a building designer.
Yeah.
And you work within a certain budget, you know, so which is very hands-on. Whereas on the other side, when you go to uni, first thing, if they know you from TAFE, they will tell you, especially your tutors, forget about what you learned in TAFE. So they don't want you to know anything about what you learn in there, which I found really weird, I would say, if you want to put it out that way, because
So the first thing they mentioned was just forget.
yeah, so because they knew, like, because when I started talking about the ways, like, you know, the things will work around architecture, they could tell like I have a really technical kind of a background, and then I told them, like, you know, because I've studied TAFE, so they're like, yeah, but whatever you learned there, forget about it, because that's not how uni works.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, so uni is all about theoretical, very conceptual, it's very like vague, I would say.
Isn't it important? Because what I understood is university or college, forget about it.
Yeah.
But in architecture, you do need practical knowledge, right? Theoretical is
100%.
important. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
saying
yeah.
it's not important,
Yeah.
but you need practical, so you will be designing in practical world.
Yeah.
So why would they mention that statement in the first time?
That's a very
That's
good
a pretty
question.
good university. University of Sydney is
Yeah, it's one of the top unis to be able to study in
Why did they
architecture.
mention?
So I guess, like I mentioned, the whole course is about the first 3 years of bachelor's is all about theoretical work.
And then last year,
Then you have 2 years of masters after the 3 years of bachelor's, which don't really too much focus on the practical side as well, but it does touch the technical part of it, but not as much as you would do in TAFE. So it's very, very different.
any cool projects or studios you worked on that stand out?
Look, I guess each semester got like different projects that you work on. So if I have to put it out, like, so when I went to uni, so my first year in a studio, you basically got like a project where you have to work around with a bamboo. So
What did you make?
so like I mentioned, it's a very conceptual course, right? So it's not like you would think, oh, you have to make a building out of that. So you basically make the things that they call instruments. Okay, so it's like I mentioned previously. So how you move around within a space is what kind of an instrument you're gonna make from those
Bamboos.
So for our course, like, you know, for the first year, we went to this place called Cocktail Island in Sydney. So where you make this object out of this bamboo, and then you walk within a space with, depending on how you want to do it. So you could be bifolded, blindfolded, sorry. And then you walk within a space using those instruments to understand like how you think you can walk around within the space. So it's and then that you're going to apply that to a project or to a design that you think going to work well within that space. So yeah, I guess the cool projects, I wouldn't say there's any cool projects. It's not like TAFE where they will tell you like, oh, this is your land, that's how you're going to do it. Yes, you do get a site in uni, but there's no budget. It's like you come up with like, so let's say in a studio, they will give you, okay, so you have immigrants, okay, and then you have refugees and stuff. Combine those together and make a design from that.
And ask them not to fight.
So you basically make a design which would be friendly to those two people, right? So what kind of design and how you think that's gonna stand out.
So you need to link up your projects to the theories that
they give you. Yeah.
But in TAFE, it was not the case. In colleges, it's not the case. It's more theoretical based.
Exactly.
So they kind of prepare you for just directly jumping into the jobs, but the university prepare you
to basically
have the answer. Comes up
it's very design based, right?
With the theory in the bracket.
Exactly. So that's like thinking in a way that you think you're gonna work when you go to an architecture firm, which obviously we can get onto that later. But like, yeah, it's just it's very different. 2 different courses, 2 different ways of thinking. But like, yeah, I guess if you don't want to become an architect, the best way to start would be go to TAFE and then become a building designer or a draftsman, which is the same thing. But then also, even after you finish your bachelor's degree, you basically have the same career outcome as you finish your TAFE, unless you do your master's.
Quickly, how was the workload? Was it hectic or how were they?
It was insanely hectic.
Oh, damn.
So to put it out there, like for those 3 years for bachelor's, you have to kind of forget your social life in a way. So it's just way too much. I'm talking like, you're pulling all-nighters, you have sleepless nights. You could be waking. So for me personally, like I know with people around me as well, we would wake up 3 days in a row, like we'll still be at uni working on our projects. And then probably the worst thing about this course, sorry to scare anyone out there, but the worst thing that I personally, or I would say many people experience within this course, is that it's very opinion based. So you could design like a crazy ass building, from a come up with a crazy ass design and stuff, right? If your tutor says, they have a totally different perspective to it, they have totally different opinion to it, you could go from 100 to 0 in a minute or a second,
So it depends on if that
particular
your
person
opinion is kind of matching their opinion, that it means
it's good
marks.
Yeah.
If it doesn't match in one or the other
you
way,
could have a
0.
crappy design, but it could meet up with your tutor's opinion.
Damn.
So there's no in between.
So how do you cope up with that?
It can be scary. There were moments when, tutors will be like, don't like the design. So you start from the scratch. So let's say that the semester is you have 14 weeks in a semester. And then for the first 8-9 weeks, you're basically working on the same concept. And, you're having catch up with your tutor every week. And then, they would be saying it's going pretty well. Just make little changes like this and that. But when it comes towards the presentation, let's say your preliminary presentation, they could literally change your whole design. So they could be like, yeah, maybe try this. So that could actually means start from scratch. So then you end up with 3 to 4 weeks till your final presentation, which includes your portfolio as well. Has happened to me as well, and to my many friends that are out there. They will probably know this. They probably experienced that as well.
You have another option rather than just starting it.
Yeah, you don't, unless that's literally how it is. Yeah, unless you somehow manage to go through it, and then but there would be chances that you will experience that.
On that note, does universities help in that way, or the teachers help in that way?
In terms of which way?
If they didn't like it, for example.
Yeah.
And then you need to do it from scratch.
I didn't.
can ask-
It's all your work. It's all your thinking. How are you gonna work around it?
But do they have any support systems or no?
What kind of support system are
Like, for example, you're not able to do it. You only have 1 week left.
No,
Submit and you're not starting.
no. I mean, you
So in
you
that
can't
sense-
get extensions.
So, but in that note, because I understood
Yeah.
what you're saying, but in that note, isn't it a good tip or advice for the students to keep your project in track with its tutor?
Yeah, I would
Rather than
say
just
like you have.
dumping it again in the last.
But then
quarter?
again, like I mentioned, you could be following what the tutor is saying, right? So if they're saying up to the 8 or 9 weeks that, oh, you know, your concept or your design is working great, but like just make minor changes and stuff, right? But all of a sudden in your presentation, they're like, nah, don't think that's working anymore, and they want you to change the whole thing. How do you justify that?
So the only way is
The only way is start from scratch, which is very painful, obviously.
but you chose the course, so you
But-
have to manage.
Yeah, another thing I would say that, yeah, it's just architecture, just like I mentioned, just forget about your social life.
Focus on it.
Focus, like the more, like no matter how much hours you put in, till the last minute, you will still feel like it's not enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You are making me scared, man.
So look, I'm being honest, that's,
Yeah, that's
you
what
know,
I want you to
that's
be, but
what
the thing
the
is,
whole course is all about. Like it's very, very time consuming. Like these are probably like the backsides of it. Like people wants to know that there's a lot of money involved. So with all the models and stuff that you're making, right? So the amount of money that you have to spend after your course fees is separate. So like obviously you have your course structure and course fees. So obviously I think for the international students, I think it's about 48,000 a year or something. And then whereas your domestic students, it's about $9,000 a year. But on top of that, for the 3 years, all the materials, tools that you're using that you need for your course, you'll probably be thinking like you probably need another extra $8,000 to $10,000 out of your
these.
pocket for like all your materials, tools that you need to have to make models. Basically. So yeah,
okay.
yes, uni do provide them, but sometimes it's not enough.
Well, talking about the money thing,
Yes.
internships, job market, and PR pathways.
Yes.
So, did the university help you find internships or industry connections?
No. I feel like it's more like how you network with people around. So, you know, like you would have after the final presentation, you know, you have like a exhibition that uni set up with every student's work. Or I would say every student that kind of stood out in a way, their project, that would be exhibited in a exhibition. So if you like, yeah, have connections, you catch up with someone in that exhibition, or like, you know, you talk your way through it. You know, I guess that's the only way you can actually get the internships and stuff. The rest is basically you have to put an effort. I wouldn't say university help you in that way. You have to put an effort yourself.
Right.
So it's all about networking.
Oh, network.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Which is very hard because not everyone.
It's too much extrovert like us to talk on.
Exactly.
But you need to be.
But you need to be.
Anyway.
Exactly.
How is the job market for architecture graduates in Australia right now? What do you think? Because you're a graduate.
Right now, I
Be
would
honest.
look from when I graduated to till now. There's a lot of struggle in this industry, especially in Australia. It's just so there's two types, right? So there's project builders, and then you have your architecture firms. Yeah. So the worst thing that I've found is that they ask for previous experience before getting into the job, which I never understood. So how you meant to have an experience before getting into a job when you actually applying for a job to get an experience?
I know. This loop is all
Yeah,
everywhere.
I guess it's everywhere, right? But I would say currently, I personally feels the architecture industry is not up there in Australia.
But it looks like people are dying for this course, right?
They are, but like, is it really worth it? But
That's the question. That's why we are doing the podcast.
exactly, right? So look, I worked for quite a few project builders. Did I like it working for them? No. Then why? It's because I felt like it's just the same copy and paste. Every design is very similar. It's just like, this client wants that, this client wants this, but just minor changes here and there. But within that time, I actually opened my own business of architecture. So that was actually after finishing up my diploma.
We'll talk on this.
So there's other ways, right? So
another podcast coming soon.
So within my working, when I was working for myself, I worked for myself for like 5-6 years. But then I stopped. But then I worked for a retail company for Woolworths, where I was working for store planning. Obviously because I have that background. I guess like working for yourself was a good thing, but has its pros and cons, right? So, but we can get onto that later. It's a very long topic, I would say.
Does this degree help in getting your PR, and what are the pathways? I know you're domestic.
I would not know. I'll be honest out there, but I personally think like this probably won't be the right course to help you in a PR, because it's unless like there's like sponsors out there like who can help you out and stuff.
Other than that,
I'm not too sure. To put it out there.
Are architecture firms hiring international students easily?
It all comes down to sponsorships and stuff as well.
Again,
right?
it mentioned.
But I don't think it's very easy as an international student, I would say. I think it more depends on. Then again, international students have different goals as well. Some people don't stay in the country. Some people leave after studying. But I wouldn't be too sure, because I've personally never met anyone who was an international student while working in a firm. I mainly met people who were like sponsors and stuff. So yeah.
Next, I know you can't answer them as an international student, but if you can answer them, what were the biggest challenges? I want brief answers.
What
are the biggest challenges that you faced, academically or socially?
As a domestic student?
As a student.
What was it? 7.
What are the biggest challenges that you faced? Academically or socially, or anything?
Look, I wouldn't say socially it was any issue, because like there's so many students out there. You can meet up with anyone you want, right?
Yes. Academically,
I would say
start from.
You basically like you don't know where to start from. Like if you have a background, but then at the same time someone's saying like forget about where you learned. I felt like that was probably the challenge in itself. But you just gotta have a knowledge to get into that course. You can't just start from scratch and be like, all right, I want to do. You just wake up one day and be like, I want to do architecture. There has to be a reason why you want to do it.
If I can ask from you, how did you manage your finances during studies, like any part-time jobs and stuff?
Surprisingly, I was working full-time while I was studying full-time.
Because you're domestic anyway, but where were you working?
But I was working at Woolworths. So I was working as a department manager. But like I mentioned, full-time and full-time study at the same time. So I would go to uni after my work. So this course doesn't allow part-time. It's only available full-time.
It's a tough course, as you mentioned.
Exactly. So, but saying that I was working full-time, it kind of worked out with my timetable for uni. But it can be hectic. I mean, it was hectic. Like I mentioned, you're not sleeping for many days and you're still going to work. So yeah.
Okay. So as it was a topic that is architecture worth it in Australia or no? That was the main topic. So on that, advices for future Australian students or architecture students, what skills should students develop before starting architecture? If you want us some list.
Look, like I mentioned at the beginning, make sure you have you have access to all the tools before, so you learn how to use all the softwares. Start from that.
Name some softwares.
Look, I would probably say Revit, Rhino. Wouldn't say Rhino too much, but Revit, ArchiCAD, Google SketchUp, Photoshop, which is very highly used in unis. That would be your 3 key softwares to use.
And other skills?
Make sure you know how to draw. I guess that would probably be the main skill to have. Just and know the technical side of it. Like when I mention technical, how the structure works.
There's one more that I want to add from your
Yeah.
conversation. Start networking. You know how to network with people.
Yeah.
That's something that you need.
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess that's with
Just
any
think
job, I
about
would
the
say.
goals, think about the next step, which is your job, and
Exactly, because you gotta have all the connections in the world. No matter who it is, I guess you have to have them to be able to go somewhere.
Makes sense.
And one thing I really want to say about
Yeah.
architecture in general,
Yeah.
don't do the course if you think like you're gonna make a lot of money. Because I felt like that was some students' perspective that, doing architecture will lead you to so much money later on in terms of like salaries and stuff.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not. As a start,
It
you
takes
will
a
be
lot.
working at a very minimal
Rates.
rates. Well, I'm doing like obviously not like illegal rates, but like legal rates, but like
It's still minimal.
it's very minimal, but the amount of work would be a lot because you are a graduate and
You're a freshie.
they will use you.
You're a freshie.
And
It's called employee-
that's what I've
It's called employee exploitation.
That's it.
It's okay. Well,
That's it.
that happens.
But there could be ways where people on graduate programs, they still won't get the job afterwards. So let's say they're on a year graduate program, 2 years graduate program. There is no guarantee that people will be getting a full-time job after that. So
Next question. Any one myth about architecture study that you would like to burst?
literally just what I said, don't think about it's a lot of money. It's not. I guess it all comes down to like, what do you want to get out of it? You got to put a lot of effort just to finish the course itself. It's 10 years.
Oh,
Not the course, but I would say the course
The
itself,
journey.
the journey. Yeah, 8 to 10 years, because 5 years is just you're studying, and after that you gotta have minimum of 2 years experience within a registered architect. So minimum 2,000 hours.
to search for them the job in the
No, to work for someone, to be able to become an architect.
to
So-
be called as an architect.
So 3 years of bachelor's, 2 years of master's, minimum 2,000 hours or minimum 2 years to
Under
work for someone.
Okay.
And then after that, you got to give an architect test, which is like a written test.
And then,
And then you got to give an interview. And then after that, to the other architects, there's like there's
Association?
Yeah,
Do you know the
association.
name?
I'm not sure.
okay.
But yeah, it's just the final interview that you have to give to these architects. From there, once you have been approved, that's when you become the architect.
And then you can start your own
Yeah.
company.
So
Makes sense.
8 to 10 years.
Well, let's
Yes.
do something good.
Yes.
That's the last one. Rapid fun.
Go for it.
Okay. So rapid fire round. First, AutoCAD or Revit?
Revit all the way.
Design critics or submission deadlines? What's scarier?
Design critics, 100%.
Dream city to design in? Sydney, Melbourne, or somewhere else?
Somewhere else.
What's that somewhere else you don't have? Like?
I would, if I had get the chance, I would go to Europe and design something there, because I feel like that's where all the architecture is all about.
That's cool.
And then Melbourne has a beautiful architecture as well as compared to Sydney.
But you need to go so much high in the post to
Yeah.
get there. PR or passion?
Passion.
Passion. Late night design or early morning presentations?
Look,
Come on.
I'm a both person. I'm an early starter as well as late night, but I would say late night
Late night design?
designs.
Okay.
That's literally how uni works. after
that
your
if-
tutors.
If I can just briefly, what are you actually currently doing now? Like working, freelancing, or continuing your studies?
Yeah, I am working. I'm working in Coles. So I work as a design brief coordinator.
Yeah.
So which is related to architecture as well. So I was previously working for Woolworths as a store planner, which was also on a secondment role. So that's another challenge in itself, because there's companies that will hire you on like secondments and contracts, but the opportunities of becoming a full-time is very limited. Because there's people out there with like 20 years in the same role, they would not leave, or like they won't move up. So it's very limited opportunities for someone to like step up. So yeah, currently working for Coles as a design brief coordinator, very similar role to what I previously worked for Woolworths. So yeah, you just gotta keep trying, and just keep trying, and just hope for the best that you will get a job one day.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me, man.
This was all the information we could collect from a person who studied, worked, and now is working and has seen ups and downs in this field. And if you still need more information, comment your questions down below. If you want him to come back, comment them below.
More than happy.
If there are good comments, good number of comments, then he'll be back. You need to see the comments on the video.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And if you're fine with it, I would love to share a contact, like a LinkedIn, like an Instagram, whatever is fine with you, to the people, so that if they have any questions, they can directly.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I will share with couple.
And I'll put that in the comment and description section, the link of it, so you can talk to them. And when you're free, as I mentioned, just reply to them. And if you have any questions for me or any suggestions for me, comment them or just DM me directly on Instagram. Links are all in the description. Snapchat, YouTube, everything is in the description. So share this video to your friend who's thinking to do architecture in Australia, because they might need to know, or they might have some myths that they don't know about this industry. And they need to be cleared this out ASAP.
It's a very challenging course.
Yes.
It's fun, but it's challenging. So think wisely.
Think wisely, yes. So like this video, subscribe to the channel for more podcasts, and we'll get you again for more business things, because there's mentioned right now. See you guys in the next video.
Catch you later.